The prisoner could no longer endure the brutal beatings from the guards, and in a burst of fury, fought back, pushing one of them. As a result, the warden publicly ordered his execution by shooting on the spot.
Present arms. Take aim. Fire.
All of this was witnessed by another inmate, Jean Valjean. He had been sentenced to 20 years in prison for nothing more than stealing a loaf of bread. Such a harsh punishment had filled his heart with rage for decades. For years, the massive quarry had been the prisoner's place of labor. Valjean had long lost count of how many times he had swung his pickaxe. Looking down at the guards who treated the prisoners as less than human, Valjean's anger reached its peak. He swung his pickaxe hard, aiming to drop a giant boulder and crush the guard below. He succeeded. Seeing the guard lying half dead under the stone, an involuntary smirk appeared on Valjean's face. Then, a thought crossed his mind. If he used this chance to help and save the man, maybe he could earn a reduced sentence. So he quickly went down, using his own body to hold up the boulder and pull the guard to safety. All of this was seen by the prison warden, Javert, who stood above. However, in this cruel prison, there had never been such a thing as a sentence reduction. Valjean's hope for leniency was crushed. He endured the endless torment of his 20-year sentence. Finally, the day of his release arrived. Javert handed him the wages for 20 years of labor, just 109 francs. That was all that remained after countless unfair deductions by the prison.
Spend it wisely.
Then Javert gave Valjean a yellow identification pass, telling him that wherever he went, he must present it to the local police. The word convict printed on it was like a brand, causing Valjean to be rejected everywhere he sought work. 20 years behind bars had left him discarded by society, an outcast, despised and shunned. On the rare occasion someone was willing to hire him, they treated him as little more than cheap labor. Even when Valjean did the work of 2 men and finished the job, his pay was only half that of a regular worker.
They got more.
That's enough for you.
Unable to find steady work, and with no inn willing to take him in, Valjean had no choice but to sleep on the cold stones of the street at night. It was then that a kind passerby told him about a place, the home of Bishop Myriel. Indeed, the kind-hearted bishop welcomed Valjean. With warm food and a comfortable bed, he treated this weary traveler with care and respect he had not felt in years. Yet after so long in darkness, Valjean's wariness and greed had not completely disappeared. He set his eyes on the bishop's silver tableware. When night came, he stole the silver, hoping to sell it for money and start a new life. But fate seemed to enjoy playing tricks on him. Soon after, he was caught by the police and brought back to the bishop. Just when Valjean thought he was headed back to prison, the bishop made a shocking move.
Forgot to take the candlesticks, didn't you? Or didn't he tell you that I said he could have the silverware? And thank you for your trouble.
After sending the police away, Bishop Myriel also gave Valjean a pair of silver candlesticks, telling him to use them to start a new life. The bishop's compassion and kindness were like a beam of light piercing into Valjean's darkened heart, allowing him to feel the warmth and beauty of humanity for the first time. Still, the walls he had built inside over the years made it hard for him to fully trust such kindness right away. After a sleepless night, Jean Valjean left the bishop's home and dozed off under a tree by the edge of a field. Before long, the sound of a children's song grew closer and woke him. He saw a little boy walking past, humming a tune and tossing a coin in his hand.
Will you move your foot, monsieur?
Go on, get out of here.
Get lost, go on!
You're a dying thief! A curse on you!
When the child's figure disappeared into the distance, the bishop's parting words, urging Valjean to become an honest man again, echoed in his ears. After a moment of soul-searching, he suddenly came to his senses. He immediately set off, calling the boy's name, wanting to return the coin. But unfortunately, the boy had already run off in fear, far beyond earshot. Realizing he had once again committed a wrong, Valjean fell to his knees by the roadside and wept. Years later, reformed and carrying with him the bishop's silver and the hope he had been given, Valjean arrived in a new city under a false name. Through hard work and wisdom, he gradually built up a business, became a successful merchant, and, earning the people's trust, was appointed mayor. He was charitable, cared deeply for the welfare of his workers, and made great contributions to the development of the city, gaining the love and respect of its citizens. Just when he thought life would finally be better, a newly hired female worker at his factory would become forever intertwined with his fate.
Your name?
Fantine, monsieur.
And if you take me, I'll work very hard.
But I am alone in the world.
No children?
I'm alone in the world.
Kind-hearted Valjean decided to keep Fantine on, unaware that she was not alone. She had a daughter. To make finding work easier, she had left the girl at an inn. The child was the result of an out-of-wedlock relationship. Not long ago, the beautiful and gentle Fantine had met a wealthy young man from Paris by chance. His sweet words made her believe she had fallen in love.
You have to remember, they're not serious, these types. They're just amusing themselves. We're not ladies, we're grisettes. It's not solid ground, Fantine.
Warnings from friends went unheeded. Fantine thought herself lucky and, filled with dreams of crossing the barriers of class, trusted the man's lies. In the end, she gave herself to him without much thought. But after having his way, the man left her only a letter before returning to Paris.
At last it is time to remind you that we have parents. By the time you read this, we have left.
The truth hit Fantine like a thunderbolt, leaving her reeling in shock. Before she could recover from the sudden and brutal end to her romance, her child was quietly born.
Oh, Cosette. Whatever are we gonna do now?
When Cosette was 3 years old, the church in their hometown discovered Fantine had given birth out of wedlock and expelled both mother and daughter. From then on, they wandered from place to place. Constantly caring for her child, Fantine could not find work, and no employer would take her in. One day she arrived at an inn. The innkeeper's wife welcomed her warmly, kindness she had not felt in a long time. Coincidentally, the innkeeper's family also had 2 children. Seeing Cosette happily playing with them sparked an idea in Fantine's mind.
Could you look after my child for a while, madam? It's just when I saw your little ones looking so pretty and well cared for, I could pay.
7. It'll have to be 7.
6 sevens, that's 42 francs.
Believe me, mademoiselle.
In effect, Fantine sold her daughter to them. The small bag of francs she left as a fostering fee could buy 50 pounds of bread at the time, but it could not buy her protection from human greed. Without the burden of a child, Fantine was able to secure a job at Valjean's factory. After sending part of her wages to the Thénardier for Cosette's upkeep, she could still save 3 francs a week. This income made her believe that the future would indeed improve. When she received her first wages, she rushed to the post office to send money for Cosette. Out of love, she even added a little extra. Little did she know, her kindness would only feed the Thénardier's greed. Thinking Fantine had found a good job and was earning plenty, they made up excuses to raise the fostering fee to 15 francs.
15. I'll write to her today.
15 francs a month. I can't pay that.
With no other choice, Fantine continued to send the payments. When she counted her newly issued wages and realized that after mailing Cosette's living expenses she had only 1 franc left, a look of distress crossed her face. That day, as she left the post office, she happened to be spotted by the factory foreman.
And no doubt the little girl was conceived in sin and become some sort of encumbrance.
The Thénardier, seeking to squeeze more money from her, fabricated countless rumors about Fantine and told them to the foreman. The foreman hurried back, intending to report the matter to the boss, just as trouble was unfolding for Valjean elsewhere. To save a citizen who was about to be crushed under a carriage, Valjean once again braced his body against the vehicle, rescuing the man. This scene happened to be witnessed by the city's newly appointed chief of police, none other than Javert, Valjean's former prison guard. Fortunately for Valjean, Javert did not yet have concrete proof of his identity, but Javert's arrival was like the sword of Damocles, hanging over his head, ready to fall at any moment and shatter the peaceful life he had worked so hard to build. Inside, Valjean's mind was already in turmoil. The old accusation of robbing a child still gnawed at him. At that moment, the foreman returned and began his report.
Lying little whore, you're a disgrace.
Enough, both of you, enough!
You're dismissed.
Distracted and agitated, Valjean dismissed Fantine without personally verifying the claims. Jobless, Fantine sat in despair in her home, unsure where her future would lead. Meanwhile, Valjean's own troubles deepened. The relentless and incorruptible Javert remained suspicious of his true identity, even going so far as to report him to the Paris police headquarters. Javert firmly believed that a former convict could never truly change, and that it was his duty to bring Valjean back to justice.
I've identified a dangerous criminal. His name is Jean Valjean.
You're mistaken.
Jean Valjean's in custody.
Has this man confessed to being Jean Valjean?
Not yet, but he will.
But the sudden appearance of another Jean Valjean confused Javert. Afraid of wrongly accusing an innocent man, he temporarily halted his investigation. The real Valjean, however, quickly hid the bishop's candlesticks, then gathered all his savings and hurried deep into the remote mountains to bury them in a box. On one hand, he feared the candlesticks might expose his identity. On the other, burying everything would allow him to flee quickly if trouble came. The winter night was bitterly cold. In her small home, Fantine shivered as she mended her worn clothing. Suddenly, a letter was slipped under her door. Believing the contents to be true,
they're asking for money for medicine. 40 francs.
Fantine left the post office looking grave and hollow-eyed. She wandered aimlessly down the street. 40 francs for urgent medical treatment was an impossible sum for her to raise. Then she came upon a street stall that bought hair and teeth. Fantine's beauty and thick, lustrous hair immediately caught the stall owner's attention. He made an offer on the spot, 40 francs for her hair and teeth. It was, in her desperate situation, the only trade she could make. After a long moment of hesitation, she accepted his terms. The cold, sharp scissors snipped through her hair, and the stall owner's rough handling tugged painfully at her scalp. Her heart was in turmoil, but she kept telling herself, hair will grow back. Before she could collect her thoughts, the owner forced her head still to keep her from moving. When she looked into the mirror at her reflection, hair shorn, front teeth missing, Fantine broke down and wept in grief.
What do you reckon? 100?
Tell them I'll send it as soon as I can.
Naive Fantine, believing her child was truly on the brink of death, never doubted the claim and began preparing to raise more money. That night, the heavy rain relentlessly beat down on her body. And on that same night, with nothing left to sell, Fantine made the choice to sell her own body. For every client she served, she earned a meager half-franc. Long-term poverty left her malnourished, until one day she coughed up blood. Even so, the money she had earned was still far from the 100 francs demanded by the Thénardier. So, Fantine chose to remain on the cold streets.
Fantine, is that you? Fantine?
Leave her.
After her factory co-workers had walked away, Fantine stayed where she was.
Take this whore to the cells.
But what about my child?
Just as Javert was about to take her away and lock her up, her co-worker arrived with the mayor.
Villain!
Get away from me! No!
I was wrong to dismiss you. I'll pay your debts. I'll find your child.
Valjean could hardly believe that his earlier poor judgment had reduced Fantine to such a state. Overwhelmed with guilt, he promised to help reunite her with her child and to take care of them both. Then, risking the exposure of his identity, Valjean defied Javert to his face and took Fantine away. The doctor's diagnosis was grim. Her body was so weak, she had only a short time left, and no treatment could save her. In what remained of her life, her last wish was to see her daughter Cosette once more. Valjean immediately agreed, promising to bring her daughter back. But events soon disrupted his plan. Javert informed him that somewhere else, another Jean Valjean had appeared and was to be tried in court in 2 days. The news shocked the real Valjean. Having served in government for many years, he knew full well that this man was just a scapegoat dragged out to close an old case. The thought unsettled him deeply. Back home, he burned his old identification papers. Part of him felt relieved that someone else was taking his place, but another part was tormented by the weight of his conscience. He still kept the coin he had once stolen from a child. Staring at it, he broke down in tears and could not sleep all night. At dawn, Valjean hurried to the factory, instructing the foreman to fetch Fantine's child, and then rushed straight to the courthouse. When he arrived, the trial was already beginning.
Are you the felon, Jean Valjean?
Very wicked you are. Twisting everything. Never stole anything.
He watched as an innocent stranger was forced to bear his crimes, saw his former prison mates perjure themselves and point out this good man, and noticed Javert watching him with a mocking glare. Having endured 20 years of prison life, Valjean knew all too well the brutal world that awaited this innocent man. For years he had been under the unyielding judgment of his own conscience, and now he could no longer allow himself to run away.
I am Jean Valjean.
In court, he proved that he was the real Jean Valjean and was promptly arrested again by Javert. On the carriage ride to prison, a strange calm settled over him, as if those long days and nights of moral torment were finally coming to an end. But as he stepped off the carriage, he spotted the factory foreman among the crowd. In an instant, he realized the foreman had not brought back the child. Valjean shoved the police aside and bolted. He raced to Fantine's bedside, only to find no sign of her daughter. When she asked him where the child was, he was struck speechless, unable to give her an answer. At that moment, Javert arrived and coldly told Fantine the truth. Jean Valjean was a criminal, and he had never gone to fetch her child. At the very time he claimed to be doing so, he had been in court, confessing to his crimes. Hearing this, Fantine's frail body could no longer withstand the shock and grief. Her heart gave out, and she passed away in sorrow. Witnessing this, Valjean broke down in tears, racked with remorse. While her body was still warm, he solemnly swore that he would find her daughter and devote the rest of his life to protecting her happiness and watching her grow. Shortly after, Valjean was thrown into prison by Javert. That night, while everyone slept, he retrieved a small file he had hidden in his mouth and used it to escape. Through the freezing winter night, he searched tirelessly until, at last, he found little Cosette by the river.
What's your name?
Cosette.
I'll carry your buckets tonight. You show me the way.
Once he was certain it was her, Valjean followed Cosette back to the inn. The next morning, he told the Thénardier he wanted to buy Cosette. Since they had demanded 100 francs from Fantine and never received a cent in living expenses afterward, the Thénardier were more than pleased to hear someone was willing to take the girl off their hands. They immediately named their price, 1,500 francs. Valjean agreed without hesitation. Once the deal was done, he took Cosette away from the inn.
I could have got more off him.
Take the pistol.
Give me 3,000, I'll take the girl back.
Off with you!
Through quick thinking and courage, Valjean managed to get Cosette away from that dark, wicked place. As a fugitive, he brought her to Paris under a false identity. Day by day, they grew closer, forming a deep father-daughter bond. Cosette's presence allowed Valjean to feel once more the warmth of family and the meaning of life, and it strengthened his resolve to protect this innocent child. From that day on, their fates were bound together. Meanwhile, Javert never gave up the hunt. Soon, he tracked down the Thénardier and learned from them that Valjean had gone to Paris. Javert immediately issued wanted posters, plastering the streets and alleys of Paris with Valjean's likeness. During his investigation, Javert also discovered the Thénardier were lazy and deep in debt. He had their property seized and threw them out. In Paris, Valjean's landlord recognized his tenant as the man in the wanted posters and went straight to the police. By the time Javert and his officers arrived, Valjean, ever vigilant, had already fled with Cosette. With Javert in close pursuit and more police blocking the streets ahead, Valjean, with no way out, climbed into a convent with Cosette.
Père Madeleine.
Sister Sam, please. She's Fantine's child.
Fortunately, they ran into a kind nun who knew them. At her request, the Mother Superior agreed to shelter the two fugitives. From then on, they finally had a place to rest in peace. Over time, Cosette grew into a beautiful and kind young woman. Hearing stories from the other girls about the outside world, she began to long for life beyond the convent walls. One day, she told Valjean her thoughts. She said she was still young and wanted to see the outside world, not spend her whole life confined within the convent. Valjean, who had intended to live out his days there, fell silent at her words. He realized he could not let his fear of the police trap Cosette in this place forever. So he once again returned to the place where he had buried his money, dug up a portion, and took it with him. Then, together with Cosette, he bid farewell to the nuns and left the convent. They arrived at a house that Valjean had secretly purchased long before. From that day onward, this would be their home. Cosette, delighted by her new surroundings, was full of curiosity about everything. Valjean even bought her a piano and hired a black maid to look after her daily needs. Time passed peacefully in this house for a while. One day, Cosette once again voiced her dissatisfaction. Although they had moved, she still could not go out freely, and she felt as if she were still trapped in the convent. She hoped her father would often take her outside to see the world. Not wanting to disappoint her, Valjean agreed. He took her to the Luxembourg Gardens and even bought her new clothes. In the park, Cosette's beauty immediately caught the eye of a young man named Marius, who was out for a stroll. Captivated, he found himself following her. At that moment, Valjean accidentally dropped his handkerchief. Marius quickly picked it up, and so he and Cosette met for the first time. But Valjean swiftly pulled Cosette away, wary of encountering anyone who might pose a threat. In the days that followed, Marius could not forget her. With help from acquaintances, he eventually learned where Cosette lived. One night, he slipped into her garden through a broken section of the fence.
Of course.
Cosette.
At that time, Paris was on the brink of revolution. Social tensions were growing sharper, the gap between rich and poor ever wider, and the common people lived in great suffering. Students and workers poured into the streets, demonstrating against the old order, calling for justice and equality. As a passionate young man, Marius left a letter for Cosette before throwing himself into the revolutionary cause. He believed that only through revolution could they end the injustice and bring happiness to the people. Meanwhile, Javert still refused to give up his pursuit of Valjean. Convinced that Valjean would join the uprising, he disguised himself as a revolutionary and slipped into the ranks to seize him. But a sharp-eyed boy in the crowd recognized Javert as a policeman and told the revolutionary leaders. Before long, they caught him and tied him to a post. At this time, Valjean found the letter Marius had left for Cosette. From it, he learned not only of their love, but also that Marius had joined the revolution. Alarmed, Valjean knew well the dangers of the uprising and feared that Cosette might lose her beloved. Determined, he set off for the barricades, both to find Marius and to judge his character for himself. By the time Valjean arrived, government troops were already closing in, and the barricade was on the verge of being overrun. Without hesitation, he stepped forward to hold the breach, playing a crucial role in the defense. His bravery won the admiration of the revolutionary leaders, who welcomed him warmly into their ranks. Soon after, Marius also distinguished himself, risking his life to save a child. Valjean, witnessing it all, began to think that perhaps this kind-hearted, courageous young man was indeed worthy of Cosette. Before the next assault, the revolutionary leaders handed Javert's fate over to Valjean. When the two men stood face to face once more, a storm of conflicting emotions filled the air. Javert believed his death was certain, but what Valjean did next left him utterly astonished.
You can find me at Rue de l'Homme Armé.
Make a hell of a lot more sense than this.
Just go!
And so, Valjean let Javert go. By this time, the revolution had reached its boiling point. With the government forces launching their final crushing assault, the last line of defense was on the verge of complete collapse. Marius was gravely wounded in the fighting, and in the chaos, Valjean seized the moment to carry him to safety through the sewers. In the end, this brutal uprising claimed the lives of everyone, except Marius. When Valjean dragged Marius out of the sewer, they unexpectedly ran into Inspector Javert. At Valjean's request, Javert agreed to take Marius home for treatment before arresting Valjean. On the way to prison, Valjean made one last request, to be allowed to return home and bid farewell to Cosette. Javert agreed and stopped the carriage outside Valjean's house. Valjean stepped inside, said his goodbyes to Cosette, and came back out, only to find that Javert's carriage had vanished without a trace. The fact that Valjean had risked his life to save him shook Javert to his core. He began to question the beliefs he had upheld for his entire career. He could not understand how a former convict could possess such noble character and selfless compassion. Deep within, the lines between law and humanity, justice and kindness, began to blur. Javert was trapped in an agonizing dilemma. If he continued his pursuit, he would betray his conscience, for Valjean had already proven through his actions that he had changed. After the trials of the revolution, Marius and Cosette finally married. Their love had overcome every obstacle and hardship. Following the wedding, Valjean's hair turned white overnight. Like a balloon that had lost all its air, he reached the final chapter of his life. With Cosette and Marius by his side, he passed away peacefully, leaving all his wealth to them, wishing only that they might live happily. Valjean's life had been filled with suffering, yet it was precisely this suffering that allowed him to achieve his redemption. Through his actions, he embodied the beauty and goodness of the human spirit, proving that hope and light still existed in the world.